listening to the Biztape, your all things music, business, and media podcast. I'm your host, Joe, with my co-host, Colin McKay. We are back together at last, finally.
Fine.
The amazing thing.
It sounds like a Disney, like end of a Disney movie where they're like, "We're back together finally," and then they sing the song. Sorry, I've been watching
specifically a Disney XD movie.
Oh God, right? Yeah, that's what I need.
Because that's like another tier of
I'm
Disney.
Glad that you put us not at the higher quality. You were like, we're going down to the Disney XD.
We're going to the proper Disney quality.
Oh God, that represents our show. Thank you. Yes, welcome to the Disney XD of podcast, the Biztape.
No, don't say that. We'll get DMCA'd. You can't say that. Welcome to the
Disney
DX podcast.
We appreciate you tuning in. As always, you can follow us on the various socials at the Biztape. Email the biztapepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you want to drop a rating wherever you're listening to, also really appreciate it. We've recently learned through our, I don't know why I'm like making it sound like we have, bird on the, out there.
Our vast employees told us that Spotify being me and Colin.
Right. Spotify's got ratings now. So if you're listening to Spotify, please feel free to rate us. We are looking forward to it. And as always, thanks for listening to the show. But, new year, we're starting out with surprising amount of news. Mm-hmm. I kind of actually had to really go through and curtail and be like, oh, I like this one, compared to some of the, we were saying this a lot in Christmas, which Christmas was supposed to be slower, but January is also supposed to continue with that, but it's not slow. And now we get all the fun statistics that are going around. But let me start out the show with this. So CD sales are up for the first time in 17 years.
Wow. CD sales? Not
CDs.
Vinyl.
Yes, CDs.
Wow.
Not to be confused with the investment property. So, there's a bunch of weird physical media sale data that has just come out from the MRC, which tracks sales across the world and basically powers most charts. You might know them previously as Nielsen SoundScan. They are the company that basically is in charge of making sure it's like, hey, let's get accurate sales numbers, see what's popular for every kind of music under the sun.
Every data point basically in the entertainment industry, Nielsen
collects,
for the most part.
And they were, rebranded to the MRC now. So in general, from all album sales were up actually 6.2% from 2020 to 2021, with vinyl up 51%.
Wow.
Which is insane. I get, my joke was, I was like, I guess everybody who was trapped in their home was looking at the old record player and being like, hey, remember this thing?
Yeah, let's use this
right,
thing.
And be like, we don't have any, I guess we can listen to, this 21 Pilots record I have from 4 years ago.
Why that one, Colin?
And it's like, let's get
all of the artists, the 21 Pilots.
Right. But at the end of the day, it seems like people really were making the move to be like, okay, let's get vinyl. Let's get new vinyl, either to listen to or, as I joke, just to look at, because vinyl is very much almost an art piece in itself for a lot of people now. It's almost like about having, it's kind of the same realm almost as NFTs, where it's like, it's about ownership, owning that physical medium of something that used to be in the air and whatever. Anyway, so it's up a crazy amount, and CDs are actually doing okay as well. But most notably between vinyl and CDs, this is the first time ever since Nielsen back in the day started in 1991 that vinyl outsold CDs.
Wow.
Which is so unprecedented. It's not even fun. If we went back 5-10 years from now, people would be like, oh, the CD seems to be on the way out. I don't know what's going to replace it. I guess it's streaming stuff, but I guess that's the end of physical media. Yeah, but clearly not. So CDs, like I said, are completely not out of the game. They are doing well, surprisingly. They're not all doom and gloom. And for the first time in 17 years, like I said, they are up, but a measly 1.1%, which is we're going to take it. We will take that small little margin.
Yeah.
So this is the last time that happened, if you're doing the quick math at home, was 2004. And CDs, fun fact, were selling 10 times as much copies as they are now. To show you how far CDs have fallen. So again, it's 1.1%, which is already a small percentage, on top of it's 10 times less than it was 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's still very low. But an uptrend is an uptrend. barely, and we'll get into why it's so small here with the number one CD, which was Adele.
Wow, really?
Okay, yes, Adele 30, which, reminder, was released in mid-November of last year. Mid-November. It was the number one CD. It had, 2 weeks and a month, and it became the number one CD out of everything, which is insane. It sold, out of all CDs, 2.15% out of all of them were that record.
Oh my God.
Right. Isn't that insane? That's an insane number. On top of the release date, people were buying this thing like crazy. And I kind of hinted at when we first talked about when that album came out, she has always been so good at selling physical media. It's insane. And literally, Billboard points out, hypothetically, had 30 not been released in 2021, total CD sales would have been down.
Oh my God.
Instead of up. That's how big the album is.
So she literally took the percentage and just shifted it.
She literally took a medium that everyone was like, it's on its way out. And because of this record, literally, if it didn't come out this year, if they're like, oh, we're going to delay it till next year, it would have been like, yep, CDs are still on their way out. Adele is the only reason that these CDs are up completely, which is insane to think about. By artist, though, she wasn't the most selling artist, though. BTS sold the most at only a little bit more, 2.54%. But still, that's all of CDs, which is crazy to think about.
It's a giant chunk of income for that artist.
It's all of a physical medium. But Adele was second. And then after that was Taylor Swift, who had 2.21%, with her recorded albums Red and Fearless being the second and third. I mean, re-recorded. All albums are recorded. Anyway, so except for that one shoegaze guy that's, upstairs in his house. Anyway, so not to be confused.
No, Colin, he's going to record it one day. Okay?
He's getting it together.
He's
got to get a couple pedals together, and then he can finally put it together. That's what he's been waiting for.
Colin, it's really just the infrastructure of the music industry. You just don't understand.
He's got to wait for the right time.
He can't do it right now. He just can't afford it.
He has to wait for the right time to happen, and then, everything.
Exactly.
Anyway, now that you're up to speed about how all works, because shoegaze is definitely the record or the genre that's going to show all progress in music. Anyway, so there was a kind of some confusion I saw because Billboard charts, which we covered way back in the day, they don't count bundled merch sales with CDs. So basically, if you're looking at a Billboard chart, they don't go, oh, this is climbing up the chart. Let's count all these CDs that were bundled with somebody's t-shirt or something like that. Because we've seen a lot of CDs that are just kind of thrown in as an extra thing. But the MRC just sees sales or sales. Mm-hmm. They do not care. So merch and collections really played a lot of roles in their report when they were reporting this data. So that's important to keep in mind. For instance, all three of the top sellers of the CDs had a compelling box set available as well, which has a bunch of different things, as well as the top 10 CDs all had crazy box sets, which, would include merch or anything under the sun. Adele specifically had bonus tracks, for instance. So that's a compelling reason to buy a CD for songs you're not going to hear anywhere else. And then Taylor Swift apparently personally signed a lot of these Red and Fearless CDs. Apparently so much she was complaining that her hand hurt so bad. She was like, I don't even know if I can spell my name anymore bad.
Yeah.
So but so these newer records are still using the same old box sales, all that kind of stuff. So that's why you're seeing them at the top. In my opinion, is because they're bundled with these things that are more interesting than a CD. Mm-hmm. But catalog CDs by themselves were doing relatively well as well. They were up 1.4%. So it's not just new hits where it's oh, here's the flashy t-shirt that everybody wants or something like that. It seems like the older CDs are still doing well and on their way up a little bit. So I was trying to figure out myself, why does this matter? Well, we thought vinyl... No way in hell. If you went back to 2004, when the CDs were 10 times as much, no way in hell. Vinyl's done. We're moving to some streaming and Napster's destroying us. So that's where the future is the internet. Physical media is dead. Mm-hmm. So when I see stuff like this about CDs, I think it's interesting because we've seen vinyl upset that notion of being physical media is dead. So could it happen again, but with CDs? And the reason why I kind of put this out there is because vinyl is a very old medium, it's literally the original physical medium. I mean, you can get into all the format worlds of like, this is a 33, this is a 78, but you know what I mean, is that literally that was the first kind of music, is actually having a vinyl disc. So with that, in terms of recorded music, that fan base that grew up with vinyl as the main selling point is getting older and older and older. And then people who grew up with CDs are getting older now, but maybe it's like those are coming into more fashion now.
Heck yeah, Colin.
Right.
I got a giant CD collection ready to get sold. If
I'm guessing,
millennials want it for thousands of dollars, I'm glad to sell it to you.
Yes, I think it's a stretch. I'm not going to lie to you. So I'm guessing you maybe don't have as much of an opinion about it as I do, but I do think it's interesting to see it up.
Yeah, no, for sure. I personally am a huge fan of CDs because I think, let's go back to like the beginning of like vinyl resurgence, right? And like how people were claiming that vinyl is the only way you can really listen to a song, right? It's like the high fidelity of it, which is all bullshit, by the way.
Right.
And it's been tested and proven that vinyl is one of the actually tested lower on when it came to how things sonically work.
Yeah, we've talked about it on the show. It sounds different. It's not sonically superior.
Yeah, exactly. There's really not much dynamic to it unless you have a crazy, huge vinyl setup that no one really has unless you're a millionaire.
Right. You can maximize it, but still, like, I think where you're going is that, the digital quality from CDs
is so much better.
Well, it's so
the
huge.
Best quality you can get.
If you think about back in the day, like they used to have a master vinyl, right? Like this is where all the other vinyls come from, right? That essentially exists with how CDs are now. They did it with CDs, but it was in digital format. But in the same aspect is that you want to create the most high fidelity version of your song possible. And most of the time, that's the one going on a CD if it's the high quality CD. Now there are shitty, CD. If you've ever actually messed with CDs, you know the difference between like a readable CD, all that kind of stuff. But like,
did you ever do the toothpaste trick?
What is the toothpaste trick?
Like you have a bunch of scratches on the back and then you just put toothpaste on it.
I've never seen that, but I have literally, maybe people would laugh at this. I've seen one where people cut a banana and then they rub the banana again. No, this is real. I've seen that. And so anyway, one of the downfalls of physical media right there is obviously we could say, we want about quality, but things still break. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think what I'm trying to say with that is like digital media at this point, especially streaming, is not at the quality of a physical CD of high quality yet. Mm-hmm. Like available in a mass scale that most people listen to is when I'm going to put an asterisk on that too, is that people will be like, well, that's not true because you can stream up to CD quality, and all that stuff. And I'm like, yes, you can. And it's like, well, that's not true because there's hi-fi services, maybe like a Tidal or rest in peace Spotify Hi-Fi because they infinitely delayed that, by the way.
Oh, really?
So, yes, they did. Mm. So, but what I'm trying to say is like, it's not, most people aren't on that prerogative about all the lossless audio and stuff. Apple seems to be the one right now that's like really going to it. There's even a rumor about them making like AirPods 2 that can stream lossless audio. But that's most of the time what you will find in a, file type that people are printing on their DAWs of like, here's my mix and master. And that would go on a physical CD. So that's what I'm talking about, is those CDs have such a high quality to it. And I know engineers who are literally like, yeah, I want to listen to it on the CD because it sounds better. Mm-hmm. But like at the end of the day, I don't know if it'll be the same as the vinyl argument, because I feel like the vinyl one,
you get more physicality out of it,
right? Because it's just physically bigger.
Yeah, I think people just like the idea of like having to physically work to play the song too, where it's like I have to pick the needle up, I have to put it on the thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm wondering though, is it's like, could that be for CD maybe? Like think about it 20, 30 years in the future. be like, wow, this is like how they used to do it.
Pick up the laser, put it
right now. Pick up the laser. No, anyway, like get the compact CD player. I could see this now, like, you know, on TikTok or something, being like, guys, this is so awesome. I literally saw one the other day where some like a Gen Z person, which I don't blame them for not knowing because it's confusing, saw an iPod Shuffle and didn't know what it was.
Yes, she was like, "Is it a hair clip?" and I had an existential crisis at that point.
Right, but like that's what I'm saying with CDs is like maybe we'll get that appeal of like vinyl has, where it's like, wow, this was the way that like people used to listen to music in the same way that vinyl has, but I don't know if it'll be as strong. You know what definitely doesn't have that? Cassette decks. Because they fucking suck.
Colin hates cassette decks.
I don't know. Okay, my dad has an 8-track system as well, and they suck. They just
suck.
Okay, here's the thing with vinyl. Vinyl can sound really shitty, scratched, but it works. Tape and cassette tape and 8-track and all the different, different versions that would go on different systems like a Walkman or an 8-track player sound shitty. And then they break so bad that you can't do anything with them anymore. Like you could have a scratched vinyl and it would play. It would sound, maybe it would skip, maybe it would do that, but it's still playing. But if you've never literally put a pencil in a cassette tape and wound it back or wound it into place because it got off, it sucks. And that's the reason why I feel like it's, other than unironically what our joke about the shoegaze band was, that genre has really gone into it. And so I have like some more indie rap artists and stuff like that into cassettes, but it hasn't gone mainstream because it just sucks. But CDs are kind of like vinyl, where it's like they sound a specific way, not as much as vinyl, but they kind of have like this physical appeal. You get the little CD case. You can put your own little, special little message in there, kind of like vinyl. The only downside is that I don't think it has as much nostalgia yet, but we'll have to see. And it's physically smaller. Because like with a vinyl, you can like stuff like a whole giant lyric sheet that looks nice or whatever. It's like, okay, I guess on the CD case, I'm going to put the stupid little booklet that doesn't look as cool. I'm sorry. It
that
just
like
doesn't.
Everyone loses after like
Right.
so many years. Well, Colin, I feel like the only true fan is the fan that listens on like the silicone, like little
tube,
the little tube thing where you have to grind
the wax cylinder.
Yeah, you gotta churn it like butter,
right?
And that's where the true fans are.
Yeah,
can you imagine listening to Frank Ocean on that? It's just like
that, dude. That's a meme waiting to happen. Like somebody's gonna take that for TikTok and be like, dude, Frank Ocean slaps. So it's going to be there with the little wax cylinder. And it's going to be crackling the whole time, like it's pushing it along. Yeah, it's just static.
Just a faint metallic voice in the distance.
I think it'd be so funny to have like rich kids playing on that, just like really shitty.
That is the most rich kid thing to do.
Is play on your wax cylinder? Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Oh my God.
Well, Colin, moving on, are award shows obsolete? Big question.
Yes,
and we've talked about this before, but over the past few years, we've discussed the impact that award shows have on the greater entertainment industry and why, to some, receiving these awards can be a very defining moment in one's career. However, to say that award shows have been struggling would be a vast understatement.
Can I, before you start this, we've mostly talked about like the idea that shows need to revamp and need to change, right? But I feel like we're on I want to differentiate this for the fans. It's like we're on a different argument. We're on a even more extreme one.
Yeah.
Is it even salvageable is kind of the question here.
Yeah. At this point, can we save it?
Right. But we're even past saving.
Let's just kind of dive into like where award shows are right now.
Yeah.
So last week, the Grammys announced that the award show would be postponed as the rapid spread of Omicron has walloped the entertainment industry, threatening another potential shutdown industry-wide. And according to a statement they put out, quote, after careful consideration and analysis with city and state officials, health and safety experts, and artist community and many partners, the Recording Academy and CBS have postponed the 64th Annual Grammy Awards show. The health and safety of those in our music community, the live audience, and the hundreds of people who work tirelessly to produce our show remains our top priority. Given the uncertainty surrounding the Omicron variant, holding the show on January 31st simply contains too many risks. We look forward to celebrating music's biggest night on a future date, which will be announced soon. So the timing of this announcement is also critical as the Grammys reached a new low, as John Copeland from the New York Times pointed out.
That's a good thing to reach.
Yeah. Quote, viewership for Sunday's Grammy Awards on CBS fell to 8.8 million viewers, according to Nielsen, the television research firm.
This was last year?
Yeah, this was last year.
Okay.
That's a new low for the show and a 53% drop compared with last year's show, which drew 18.7 million viewers. The previous low was 17 million viewers in 2006 when Green Day won Record of the Year.
Sorry, Billy.
Remember that? So in comparison, other award shows such as the Golden Globes are also struggling to keep up with ever-changing mood towards award shows. This week, the Golden Globe Awards held the 79th ceremony in the best venue around. Colin, can you guess what it is?
Oh, God.
That's right. It's Twitter, baby. Instead of its normal night of celebrity partying and play, the award show opted to hold it online only this year after scandal came out over how the Hollywood Foreign Press Association have handled nominations as well as their complete lack of diversity with 0 black members.
Sweet. Yeah. You guys are really showing the world the future.
There's the future of entertainment right there. So even though scandals can be very entertaining, the viewership for the show has also plummeted with a 62% drop between 2020 and 2021, making it the smallest audience since it began broadcasting in 1996.
Ooh, nice.
Year before I was born, folks.
You gotta celebrate awards when you see it.
So moving on to the Oscars, where viewership is also in, quote, steep decline, as Sarah Witten from CNBC pointed out that the award show had a 56% drop in viewership in 2021 compared to 2020. And although you may think it is due to the pandemic, the audience chart shows a different story as viewership began to decline steadily after 2010.
Ooh.
So, something to take into consideration, however, is what is being counted by Nielsen data. According to Witten, some of these dwindling numbers may be because people are opting to stream instead of watch on traditional cable, which makes it harder to collect data as different services have different opinions on what a, quote, viewer is, basically.
Sure.
So some people want to inflate numbers, some people want to stay more true to numbers.
I'm sure there's a phantom 56%.
Probably. Yeah. 56% of the population.
Yeah, I'm sure there's there's a 62% that they have no way of counting whatsoever.
No way at
That's
all.
a good save face quote. Anyway.
Yeah. But looking back into the music world, the CMA Awards are a bit of an anomaly as the viewership continued to remain steady and earning 1.1% of viewers. But as Alexandria Del Rosario points out in Deadline, quote, it's worth noting that in 2020, CMA Awards were down sharply from pre-pandemic ceremony in 2019. So, and the final one that we love the most, the Tony Awards. The Tony Awards, baby. So Tony Awards coming back in 2021 after a 2-year hiatus, the show tanked, Colin, with 2.62 million viewers, with the show previously receiving 5 million in 2019. So, with this information, Colin, would you consider this trend to be something to take into consideration?
So I think for each different award show, there's some things that are affecting them a little differently, but I do think it's a trend overall. For instance, what I mean by like outliers with that are the Tony Awards are probably a good example. I would imagine that we have to think about the year and time we live in as well, that the Tony Awards might be down because all of Broadway was shut down for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So not really that much of a drive, not like there was like a hot play or, new thing in the theatrical world that was really making a buzz. So I could see like, oh, it's down because there's not something driving it there. But I also think that it's down in general because of, this trend that we're seeing with people being less interested in award shows.
Well, do you think that it's like obviously it's down sharply these last couple of years because of the pandemic. Like I don't think anybody's arguing that the pandemic hasn't caused like a lot of the audience to not return the next year.
Well,
but do you also think that, I mean, just with the trend in general of over the past 10 years, how award shows have struggled to remain relevant to everyday viewers?
I think so too. I also think there was an overcrowding in the space with a lot of differentiation, especially which I'm going in the outliers kind of category with it, but I think it goes into the trend more than being an outlier is the Golden Globes. Because personally, I'm like, why would I watch the Golden Globes when the Oscars exist? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my thing. It's like they kind of feel too similar. Like, I get that the Emmys are supposed to be all about TV, but like the Golden Globes, I'm like, you kind of do what the Oscars do, but you're a less, in my opinion, prestigious award. So like that's another example where I'd be like, I feel like that's also really compounding their drop in the Golden Globes and everything. But I think it's a trend. I do think that it's ignorant to view these numbers and, you know, all these downfalls as anything but a trend. I definitely think there's things that are increasing the fall for different ones, such as the Tony Award example and my Golden Globes example I said. But I think it's a trend. I think it would, at the end of the day, people seem less interested in it. And like I was saying at the top of this story is we're kind of getting into this conversation of obsolescence versus, you know, trying to revamp is the thing with it, because you talking about like a lot of these dates and stuff like that when it came to like older numbers and stuff is like, I remember, you know, there was a time where it was like, everybody, let's watch the Oscars for 4 hours. And then it became more of like, everybody, let's watch the clips on YouTube and Twitter afterwards. And it's like, everybody, apparently the Oscars happen. Like that's that's kind of like how it's been. And it's
I didn't
personally
even know the
that's
Golden Globes happened until people were freaking out.
Right. I just think they've been on, like I said, with them specifically, I do really think that they are at a really sharp decline compared to the other ones because they just feel so much more samey.
Yeah.
Like at least like it feels like the other ones have like their own kings of their castle. Tony Awards, all the theatrical awards, the Grammys, all the music stuff, and then the Oscars about the movies, and the Emmys about the TV, and it's like the Golden Globes is like, wait, what if we kind of do both? And we're like, get out of here, Golden Globes.
Nobody likes you, Golden Globes.
That's what I feel like. So, yeah, it's hard to do it. I do think, to be honest with you, there is a kind of a symbol going on with, you know, which ones are doing worse and which ones are doing well. I think
but it doesn't seem like anybody's really doing well.
I wouldn't say well. The only one I would say that's doing all right is the CMAs.
And that's just in comparison to last year.
Right. But they seem to be doing better. But I also think that country music specifically has more of...
They're delayed. They're always delayed with the trends.
Well, I think it's just more of a conservative audience that kind of still views value in that award, especially with CMAs. Like, they have always made their mind up that it's like, hey, and I've talked about this a lot on the show, if we don't get a Grammy, it doesn't matter. It matters about the CMA. Oh, man, you don't have to worry about the Grammys. We got the CMAs. And then all the fan base went with that in the same way. So I feel like that's why they're holding on to it, is because they've always held on to it when the rest of the world was like, huh, that's funny. You know, and so I will worry about, you know, maybe a little bit eggheadness there if the other ones go down and be like, see, the CMAs always matter in the first place. And I'm like, wait about 10 years. Let's see how your audience is there. Because I do think country music is delayed a lot of the time. So yeah, I think it's huge.
You can
trend.
look at demographics too of like, I bet you that, I mean, a lot of the people we talk to who have cable subscriptions, right? What is the reason everybody quotes is the reason they have it? Sports. They have it for sport stuff because as far as we know at this point, I mean, you can stream sports, but it's getting, they have been the most delayed with jumping on the streaming trend. So with that, if you have a cable bundle, you're watching sports, you're probably going to listen to country music.
Have you ever seen how many country music, like
people play a football event?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
There's a reason for
it. Because that's the demographic. And it's nothing against it. It's just that's what it is. So, like, that would make sense. It's like, oh, look, we're still on cable. So it's like we're also still valuing this award. It's kind of when we talked about CDs in the front, and I also thought about that too. It's like, maybe it's just an older demographic because you're looking at these people that are listening to Adele's newest album and Taylor Swift's old re-recordings. These are older people now that grew up with that. Or, Adele is kind of, as I've always said, is like the cocktail hour music of our generation. It is. It's not a bad thing. It's like how, okay, look, it's like...
Adele's not like Michael Bublé.
No, Adele's like Frank Sinatra.
What?
Yes. Frank Sinatra, you could put on in any place and any time and play it as music, and people would be okay with it. And be like, hey, I kind of like this song. That's kind of how it is. That's what he was for that generation. And I think that Adele fits that now.
Okay. I wasn't really on board. Now you're kind of...
Yeah. So that's kind of my argument with that. But that's a long other argument that I don't want to get into. But I don't know.
Do you see it reversing?
I think with huge change, it would take to reverse. I think that personally, they need to get as far away from TV as possible at this point to try to get a younger audience. I would like to see more, to be honest, this is a live show, right? Like, this is a live show. Well, guess what? We've been streaming for 15 years. Why don't we take some monograms from what not to be like, oh, this little person in their room, but like what the streaming community has come up with, especially. I mean, to have the end, like, I talked about it a long time ago, but I remember watching like the YouTube Music Awards, and I remember being like, this is really weird and I don't like it. But now that I've kind of thought about it, it was before its time. Okay. In my opinion.
What it described to me at the
so
YouTube.
The YouTube Music Awards were strange when I watched it with a buddy of mine right when it came out. I believe Reggie Watts was one of the hosts.
Hell yes.
And somebody
already
else,
on board.
Yeah, and the whole thing was it was cool because it was like the regular award shows where they would build sets in the YouTube like auditorium or whatever they were in, and then they would just crane shot right into it. So they would just like, there was no breaks, whatever, and it felt like a more live show because of that. And it felt like there was like an interactivity to it. It felt a lot more open with the people that were there because YouTube obviously had such an amalgamation of different people from different backgrounds, people who weren't even musicians, like really were up there, being like, I can't wait for this person to perform, and people who are more minor and only really famous on YouTube would be there. It felt more organic. So like, that's kind of my idea of it is like, I felt like it was too soon. And they had like a chat interaction, I remember. It was very new at the time. Like I was like, oh, wow, there's like chat here and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of it now is people are like, oh, this is a live show. It doesn't feel like a live show anymore.
Yeah, no.
It feels like you recorded it 2 days ago. And like, I'm sure, the people aren't getting up there and going like, thanks. You guys, like they're not really that unscripted. Like you can kind of tell they all have like, okay, here's my speech prepared for if I win or something like that. But there isn't like a lot of moments, anymore. It doesn't feel as like anything could happen, somebody. And that's kind of the thing with award shows that I think has really gone down. It's like
you're left with dissatisfaction.
Right. I've never felt like the live aspect of it, but then they like do the ads like it's a live show. Like in the same way that going back to sports, I feel like they get away a lot with advertisements because you're on the edge of your seat. You're like, I want my team might get this touchdown. We might actually be able to win. So it's like, okay, I'll watch 4 ads, even though the last ad break was 2 plays ago. Fine, whatever. I want to know. Yeah. But with them, it's like, oh, good. I'm like, well, it feels like I'm watching a scripted movie, and it has the ad breaks of watching football.
Yeah, I do think it's hilarious. Like every time, because this is very cute, I guess. But me and my mom have this like yearly tradition where we both watch the Grammys at the same time, and then we just like text each other and we talk shit. But anyways, but it's really fun. But whenever we do it, I'm always very surprised because it's like, God, the ads are just, they're never ending, and you forget about it. Like you forget about ads existing in that sphere because we've just been so used to streaming at this point.
Well,
and it really is hard to pay attention.
It's hard to pay attention. They put it on because they have these network deals. Even if it's on streaming, it's on the worst streaming.
Yeah, so it's like buffering,
right?
Or it's like frozen.
And so it feels like it's like you guys need to really shift up this format if you're going to do anything. But it seems like that the industries are just not about it. They feel like, some sacredness to the award. They don't want to ruin the aspects of what the award is by making it cheesy or doing all this stuff, which I get. But it's like at the end of the day, I was like, do you want this to be like a show or do you want this to be a trade show? Because those are very different things.
Well, and that's another question I wanted to ask you. Do you think at this point we should just stop making these shows for the general audience, like the everyday person? Should we just make them for industry people?
That's what I'm wondering.
And have them behind closed doors.
Right. It's like if you're trying to do two battles here, right? Like help the industry out, be a model of being like, look, you can obtain this, have it vetted by the industry, or be commercially friendly and have people actually enjoy watching it and have like the aspect of it actually feeling like a show. It feels like, okay, we can't do both of these well, so let's just do one. And obviously being like our old joke, make a viral video by making the consumers love you is not just as easy as saying we're going to do that.
Make a viral video.
So it would be really easy to be like, it looks like all our connections here are within the industry. But I feel like the industry is fighting back against that because they want, and this is more of a modern take on it from an old, format, but they want the content. Like they want to be like, okay, look, we can take these photos of you in the suit getting the award. We can, put your little acceptance speech on your Instagram. We can do that. And it seems like a public event. So it would be weird if you were like, okay, all behind closed doors. We only got like, the voters here. Congratulations, Lil Nas X. Here, come get your award. Cool, thanks. Hope you like it. Move on. You know what I mean? If you take the theatrics out of it, then it feels like you're...
just imagine like Dua Lipa, Lil Nas X, they're all just like in a school cafeteria somewhere.
Yeah, they give them like... They don't even give them like a Grammy anymore. They give them like a certificate.
Yeah.
They're just like,
or
best record.
It's like the most improved.
Right.
Or
and then they get like a medal. They don't even get like...
it's like superlatives, honestly.
Yeah,
it's like industry superlatives.
Best dressed. Like... most likely to be a class clown, like something. Anyway, yeah, that's what I feel like it would feel like. It's like the industry would even be like, what's the point anymore if I don't get the vanity? Which is, at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's vanity. Like, and it's not a negative thing to say that it is, because that's the purpose of it, is to be like, oh, these industry people selected you and you should be proud of it because everyone in the industry has agreed that this is the number one award in, respective field A, B, or C. So, yeah, I do think that there is a aspect of it where it's like, why are we even trying? But if you don't try, then don't do it. You know what I mean? In my opinion, it's like, then just don't do it at all. And I don't want to do it at all.
Yeah, I think it is getting to that point with some of these production companies, though, of like, is this even worth the money of putting it on?
Right.
Especially with some of the smaller ones. Like, I struggle seeing how the Golden Globes is going to come back within the next couple of years.
They just don't have a niche.
They have such a bad rep.
Yeah.
Their niche, what's actually very interesting, usually we don't shout out other podcasts, but The Daily did a great synopsis of kind of like why the Golden Globes are a big deal, right? And like the situation. And from what they described, it is much more, like you said, it's not as important as the Oscars, but it's much more like organic when you're actually watching it. Like, people are much more liquored up. People are having more personality put into some of the stuff.
So when you put it in a Twitter feed, that does not come through as much.
It loses all of that.
Yeah.
I do think, they actually pointed out one of the biggest, I think, things for that, and one of the reasons why public opinion for the Golden Globes has just drowned, basically, is because Ricky Gervais's last set on there, where he basically just made fun of the whole thing,
right,
of it, and just demolished it.
Well, and that's kind of the thing, is like I think for a lot of award shows, like if I won or something, or you kind of have to have like some level of, getting out of your head and getting out of the world, be like, this is ridiculous, right? Like at the end of the day, like it's
We're
ridiculous.
All just kind of patting ourselves on the back,
right?
here.
Like this is a ridiculous thing that's happening.
But some people should. I do think award shows are great, right? Because it's like some people do get it helps them in their careers, but it also just is nice to showcase someone else.
Yeah. And I think there are moments like that. I will say and I said this on our Grammy deep dives, is the lower categories, especially that you don't see on television, are the ones that really go the mile. Like those are the ones that are like, oh, this is the biggest deal ever and is going to boost my career tenfold. I'm talking about like best instrumental, best jazz, and all that kind of stuff. Best production, all that kind of stuff. That's where it comes from. I mean, like at the end of the day, you get to the behind the house people, you know what I mean? Like, and those are the people that are really like jazzed up about it. Like, and at the end, like your best production example, that's why people are like, hey, I won 4 Grammys for production. You should come record with me. And then all these people are like, dude, you've won best production. Yeah, we're going to record with you. Yeah. That's like where it really matters.
We'll pay it.
When you get to like the tippy top and you're Drake or somebody and you're like, this is stupid. I'm already making millions of dollars. I don't give a crap about this. And I don't like the things you do. Like, so
very blatant Drake. Damn.
Right. That's my hypothetical Drake. But like, yeah, that's kind of the thing with it is it's like, it's weird because the most frontward facing thing becomes the most least valuable. And then the most, in the back thing, nobody wants to see.
Yeah.
So it's such a battle. I don't know. It definitely feels that it's going to be weird. I mean, we did a poll about this. We literally asked at the top of the hour, are award shows obsolete? And overwhelmingly, most of you thought they were obsolete. And on Instagram especially, I think it was about like I got it right here. What's in suspense? You want to guess, Joe, what the actual percentage was of like what it was?
Was it like 92?
86% said yes.
Gotcha.
If you're interested in voting in our Twitter poll, I do those all week long compared to the Instagram story because Instagram doesn't let me continue a poll.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, most people don't think it. I honestly saw the people who were saying no, kind of at different parts of the industry and stuff like that, and I could understand why they thought that. But I'm kind of in the middle. I was like, I see both ways of why y'all are talking, but it seems that the general public is thinking yes. So is this to make money or is this to shine on people? That's the question that's going to have to be answered from them.
Ultimate question, for sure.
So, all right, Joe, let's move on to this next story. Speaking of shining on people, let's talk about the ever prevalent question in country music. What are we doing with Morgan Wallen?
Yeah.
Because there's no answer, and the question keeps coming up and people keep being like, hey, are we stopping this guy from coming back in or are you letting him back into the club, basically, is what I would say the metaphor is. So the artist Ernest, who appeared on the Opry, took the stage and he brought out on January 9th Morgan Wallen as a special guest. And many in the country space did not take that well. If you don't know that much about country music, the Grand Ole Opry is basically considered the place to play if you're a country musician. It is the number one play. Like, you work your career in vain hope for a lot of people to be the Grand Ole Opry a lot of the time, unless you know some things about different Opry history and maybe don't really vibe with the Opry as much, especially after this incident where they had Morgan Wallen on. So we've talked about Morgan Wallen in the past, and I'm sure you've heard about it. Again, he was basically stopped from, utter limelight country music by the entire country music industry and record industry after he was basically found uttering a racial slur outside of his Nashville home. And so everyone just pulled the rug underneath him. They said, you're done. We're done. We don't want anything to deal with you. We're going to be done with you. That's it. Like, everybody was dropping him. He got infinitely suspended from his record label, which I've joked about all the time. That means nothing, which means when y'all get over this, we'll make money again. We're still making money off of his record right now, though, but he's suspended. So we've said that out loud. Anyway, so he's been coming back. He's been touring, and even after WME dropped him initially, which, Joe, you're going to have a field day with this, he's been touring because a WME agent is still booking shows for Wallen, quote, as a friend.
Oh, God.
What does that fucking mean? That is the weirdest thing.
As a friend who takes his percentage.
Right. Well, like, okay, I just think that's so weird as a company to be like, yes, we have nothing to do with this guy. We cleared him out. Aren't you proud of us? But this guy is also using your resources as a company to probably, and his expertise from your company to get this guy gigs. No, they're just friends. Like that has nothing to do with us.
Nothing going on.
Right. And it's like, what the fuck is that double standard? I was like, how can you have this guy as an agent? And then I'm sure there's probably conversations where it's like, hey man, like we need to figure this out if you're going to book for Morgan Wallen. You know what I mean? But it's still weird that WME has an agent doing that, because it's like at the end of the day, well, he's still using the resources that are open to him as a WME agent, you know, in some capacity, at least the clout. I don't know if other than, you know, the connections he's learned from WME, but he's going on a 54 city tour, so nothing small, for the album Dangerous, which according to the MRC was the most popular album in the United States last year. So
Gross.
Literally what I was talking about, he was rug pulled. Like, he's still the most popular album in the United States, but the industry said no. The fans were like, hell yeah, which I'm like, you need to kind of question yourself if you were like, hell yeah. But like, yeah, it is, it's weird. So people had a lot of different opinions about it, and a lot of people saw him playing at the Opry as kind of like a back to the mainstream. This is our last chance to be like, hey, this guy should be vilified. We don't want him in our community. And they want to point that out. So here are some people that were pointing it out. We first, big one was Jason Isbell. And he has a special relationship to Wallen in the fact that Isbell's song Cover Me Up is actually on Dangerous, the album. And Isbell chose actually to donate all the money he made from that to the NAACP. So like, it's crazy, like, because Isbell literally, you know, one minute was like, hey, yeah, you can cover that song. Cool. You seem like a cool dude. And then really stuck to his guns, which I really appreciate from Isbell, and was like, hey, this is fucked up. You need to not do this shit. And you need to actually make an apology. So he was saying, last night at the Opry, you had a choice either of setting one guy and his team or break the hearts of legions of aspiring black country artists. You chose wrong. And that he was the most upset thinking of the idea that, quote, young black artists walking into that venue and wondering if anybody is on their side. Yeah. And singer-songwriter Joy Aldukan, who I listened to on NPR, home, like the Tiny Desk home version, but she was great performer. She had a tweet that was making the rounds that I personally picked up on the story from. Is she said, Morgan Wallen's thoughtless redemption tour is the nail in the coffin of me realizing these systems in this town is really not for us. Kind of, you know, harkening back to what Isbell was saying. I'm going to keep making my little music in my attic. Y'all can listen if you want. I don't know that I'll do this work forever. And I'm like, this is the kind of shit that keeps people away from country music. And she's a great performer, singer-songwriter, in my opinion. Like, after I looked it up, I was like, wow, this person's great. And so, yeah, one of the other most vocal people was group was the Black Opry, which is an influential, fast-growing collective of black country music artists and supporters. Holly G is the Black Opry's founder and tweeted a letter to the Opry. And she basically was like, here's the letter I sent the Opry, so you all know what I'm talking to the Opry about, and so we're all on the same page. And they were demanding answers and revealing that the collective was in talks about possible programming at the Opry. But Holly G wrote, at the time, I'd like to express that I no longer have interest in participating with the Opry in any capacity unless there's some clear form of accountability and structural change, which I don't blame her at all. Like, that's kind of the thing with it. Other people were, you know, supporting the Black Opry and their letter to them, including Cassidy Pope, Allison Russell, and Will Hodge, to name a few, as long as many others. I'll leave you with some of Reese Palmer's comments on the situation, which I thought were pretty on the nose. Quote, watch how people are responding and reacting and move accordingly. Systems only work when we continue to participate in them. The movement or the moment we stop and divest, they lose their power. I can't say this enough. Let's stop running into a burning building. Joe, what are your thoughts about this? First off, I mean, this is a really pivotal moment, in my opinion, because I do feel like this is specifically from the Opry. Obviously allowing him on their stage is an endorsement in any capacity. If you're a venue, you're allowing this person on your stage. Mm-hmm. And being, the token, this is the biggest venue for country musicians. We want to be in this prestigious place. It seems like a stepping stone to me to coming back into the limelight. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Wallen's been trying his best to get back into the mainstream. Whether that be announcing some of these new singles where it's like hip hop country, or him coming back and performing on the Opry as well. I think I do think that the Opry, if we're looking at the Opry and how they operate, and you look at the history of the Opry, there are plenty of musicians that were barred for the dumbest shit.
Right.
From the Opry, that it's like, well, how come Morgan Wallen isn't? Yeah. When you compare like this to like some of the other things people
just
were barred
stupid
from.
Shit.
Someone was barred from the Opry for playing drums.
Yeah, back in the day.
And Morgan Wallen said the N-word, but we're not going to bar him.
Right. In 2022. You know what I mean? So it's like weird. It's like you guys have a history of barring them from stupid things. It's like it seems like you want to show that you're an inclusive organization now and you've changed over time. But you had a seminal moment here and you chose not to.
I personally have never felt necessarily inclusion at the Opry.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I could see that, but
like I think it's very much owned and operated by an older generation that doesn't exactly know what's happening.
Well, and at the end of the day, I can see that, but I almost want to be like, I will give y'all any opportunity to make a change here for the positive for this venue that has such prestige in country music. So when we show you a perfect like a perfect ball to hit out of the park, like, why aren't you guys doing that? You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, we don't know what the situation really exactly is yet, but they knew, like, if we started performing, it would have been like, hey man, that's not cool. Or if I was the Opry, I would have immediately been like, if there was some situation where it was like, we didn't know he was going to be there somehow or something crazy, like saying like the worst possible scenario, immediately would have been like, this happened, we didn't know, we got him off or whatever. We don't condone Morgan Wallen in our space, because clearly the country musicians of the younger generation are so against him, in my opinion. A lot of them are, and a lot of these really big acts that are promoting inclusion, which is just going to grow the country community, at the end of the day, are saying like, hey, we don't want anything to deal with this. So if you're going to cause more division in country music in that way, and it seems that people are willing to make a stand, even from examples of Morgan Wallen's initial cancellation, that it seems like you're making it even more divisive, you know what I mean, in that way. And you're hurting an audience that's at the end of the day going to be the lifeblood of country music in terms of increasing viewership, increasing diversity and inclusion, and just getting a flat out a bigger audience in general. Also, on top of being an ethical person, in my opinion.
Well, and here's the stick, is that at the end of the day, Morgan Wallen had the biggest album.
Right.
Which in itself says a lot.
It says a lot. And
it says a lot about the United States.
We talked about it around when it happened. It's like, it wasn't like, oh, he was the biggest album, and then he had this incident where he said a racial slur, and then sales stopped.
The incident happened, then the album came
Then the album went insane afterwards as almost a defiant piece.
Oh, 100% defiant.
Right. And so, like...
But that's the thing that's... if we really look at inclusion in the country music realm, and if you ever, if you're interested in country music, you should definitely check out. There's tons of interesting history behind it, for sure. But one of the biggest things about country music is that country music has not been necessarily inclusive, but also not divided. There are so many sects of country music that hate each other and continue to hate each other
Vehemently.
to this day, that it's more divisive, I feel like, than any other genre I've seen, because of how many like just
subgenres
of subgenres.
Well, my joke, even though you don't agree with this, is like Americana versus country music. That's my joke. Is like literally, I just go, that's what Americana is.
Yeah,
it's
but
country
Americana
music
is cooler, Colin.
because it's literally was
It's
like
cooler.
A lot of it is country music that does not want to be associated with country
Yeah, but Colin,
music.
Americana is cooler because you're an Americana artist, but you're really from Australia, and for some reason, Australia
That counts as
loves
Americana. Anyway, yeah, but like what I'm trying to say is like in an institution that is seminal in country history that has a huge incentive to keep country history prevalent and to keep it in the forefront, and who knows extremely about country history from the Opry. It seems so hypocritical to have someone who, who has given very little response to the situation after the fact or atonement or anything.
Yeah.
On your stage after country music was made by black musicians and came to the forefront due to black music, and is still being written by prolific black country writers to this day. And performers. And so like, it seems to me that it is irresponsible, especially in terms of trying to even come close to saying that country's turning a new leaf or anything like that.
I'm very disappointed in country music and the Grand Ole Opry. Right.
For some reason, I am disappointed severely, but I almost sadly have a pessimistic view. I have a pessimistic view and almost optimism that it has happened so slowly. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I hate that any of this is occurring and all that kind of stuff, but I'm almost proud of how he's been called out, forced out, so many times at a slower rate than we've seen from many other prolific country artists that have committed similar offenses. So I'm almost like, I guess that's a positive, but at the end of the day, it still is terrible. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think we got a long way to go, especially when it comes to inclusion in country music. And it's so weird to watch country music battle itself with the ever occurring question that is, Morgan Wallen versus, them trying to make so many strides with being like, well, we've increased, gender related plays on CMTs, and we've increased the amount of inclusion that we're trying with labels and who we're signing. But then every time it's like, yeah, but look at the #1 album of last year by this guy who put this album out, and then people defiantly supported him because of his views that are so unethical and unhuman.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll have to see. So Joe, let's get to the bread and butter. What have you been listening to?
Ooh, buddy. I've been listening to kind of a lot of stuff. I'm still obsessed with Planet Her, Doja Cat. It's just one of my favorite records. I'm really bummed about the Grammys because, to be honest, I wanted to see how many awards she got, because I do think she was going to get something. Also been listening to Pixie, Sunshine State, which is an amazing record by Pixie. And I've been listening to another amazing record, Slack by Molly Payton, which, if you guys love strong songwriting and just gut-wrenchingly sad songs, that is the album for you, for sure.
I'm going to say the same thing. If you like strong songwriting and gut-wrenching performance and lyrics, you should listen to The Gold Greatest Hits by the Carpenters.
Ooh, I just watched a TikTok about Karen Carpenter.
So Karen Carpenter and her brother are you'll laugh at this story. So I was you can agree that I listen to music a lot of the time in situations that the music does not match up with whatever's going on in life.
Yeah, no, not at
Yeah,
all.
so I listen to like extremely sad music when it's supposed to be happy,
Or
party,
the
whatever.
goofiest shit I've ever
or the
seen.
goofiest shit in a very like terrible, remote, terrible time. So anyway, here's another one of
Yeah,
those
like
things.
a funeral, and you're just pulling up with like anime pop hits.
Right,
Like,
exactly. So anyway, like the Carpenters are a great example of that. When I was a kid, I'm about to date myself, when the Xbox 360 was really big, you could burn CDs to the 360.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes, you could burn CDs to the hard drive. And then what was cool about it is when you brought up the menu player, you could then play the music
While you were playing the
you
game.
were playing
It
the
was
game
so
because
sick.
it came over the speakers. So here's a great example of stuff. I'd be listening to Carpenters, which if you never listened to Carpenters, it's very like singer-songwriter, like big ballads and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are about like love and love at last and all that kind of stuff. And I'd be over there and I'd be like, dude, this is great. Let's put this on. I'd be like, cool. You ready to go to play some Gears of War? And I'd be like, I'd literally be listening to this. My friends can verify this. I'd be listening there and it'd be like, rainy days and Mondays always on my grenade. It's sawing through a guy. Like it'd be like Cantus, like all that stuff, and then the next song would go up and be like jambalaya, crawfish pie, Philly gumbo. That would be like what my like, and so that was what my childhood sounded like. I would be playing Gears of War like horde mode, and it would be like all this gory stuff, and it'd be like, stop, wait a minute, Mr. Postman, grenade, like the entire time. So yeah, it was that. I really like it. Brings me back to my youth, but the gold album,
Youth of Chainsaw,
right?
people.
The gold album is like the greatest hits is pretty good if you want like a pretty good synopsis of it. Also, a big fun TikTok fact I've seen going around, but if you didn't know this, Karen Carpenter, who's the main singer, also is a fantabulous drummer, and just fucking rocks. She has like severe like jazz training, and so she just like hit like if you want to look up a clip of Karen Carpenter playing the drums. Like, here's what I do. If you've never listened to the Carpenters, go listen to it. Like, listen to it and you'll be like, oh, this is ballady 70s music. And then go look up like Karen Carpenter drum solo, and this girl will fucking rock the shit out of a drum kit. And you're just like, where the fuck? What? Like, what is going on? It's like breaks your brain.
Yeah, because it's mostly just like the date of it, right? Where it's like, it's so revolutionary for the time.
Well, it's just, it was very multifaceted. Her and her brother, I think her brother's name is Richard. They were very good at having a duality to it, but a lot of people assume them only for one thing. So another really funny song is Drusilla Penny, which Richard Carpenter sings. It is the meanest song I've ever listened to in my life.
Oh, wow.
It is.
What's
It's about this character called Drusilla Penny, and it's literally him dissing her the entire
God.
song. It's like I think literally the first line is really sarcastic. It's like, Drusilla Penny, what a name. It's like making fun of her name in the first line. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's crazy, but we'll have to see. I gotta break out the Xbox and start doing some.
Yeah, I think I remember on my thing was a Christmas playlist that was like comedy Christmas songs.
Oh God!
Yeah, I was pretty cool back in the day,
You're just sitting there like Vietnam Call of Duty playing, and it's just like. That's
exactly what was going on.